Hey. Now that the coffee orders are in.
Yay.
I still never saw... You were at that My Bloody Valentine screening, weren't you?
Yeah.
I still never saw it.
Really?
Remember there was a power cut?
I know. That was the craziest night.
Yeah.
And we did the Q&A beforehand, and then when we were in the middle of doing the Q&A, it was at the Bloor Cinema.
Isn't that a power outage?
Yeah, and they just came up, someone came up and said, you have to stop right now. There was a power outage on Bloor Street, and they had emergency lights on. There were 900 people there, and apparently what was going to happen is that these battery-powered lights were going to go out at any second, and they were afraid that if they did, it would just be chaos in there. So we had to get everybody out, and it was, yeah. That's right, yeah. You've never seen it? Well, it is awesome. Still,
I have the DVD. I just never got around. That was my time to watch it. I was like, people say, you haven't seen My Blood? I was like, well, I'm going to see it at the Bloor.
Yeah.
Big screen, never did. Anyway.
Well, the Brood, which is, we'll get to you in a second. The Brood, which you screened for the Wright stuff.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and some of her friends went as Samantha Edgar and the Brood for Halloween this year.
No way.
Yeah, and it was inspired directly by being there that night.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell me, Byron, you don't live in Bryan.
What did you call him? Barbara?
But no, yes, Barbara. The thing that I responded to so much, being a Torontonian, about this film is that it is very much a Toronto movie. So maybe I'll start with you. Just tell me a little bit then about how important it was to you to keep the Toronto-ness of the story in, and not being from here, how did you sort of get enough of the vibe of the city to make sure that it came through in the film?
Well, I think on one hand, I think sometimes it's interesting when, like a film is shot by a foreign filmmaker. Sometimes, it's with a very appreciative eye, because it's like a new and exotic kind of place. But then the books themselves are such a detailed world, and I like the way... I'd been to Toronto, I know how to pronounce it. I've been to
English way, that's fine. You're British.
To Toronto about 3 or 4 times before I met Bryan. But reading the books and him showing us around the locations, I like the way that Bryan's art had sort of stylized Toronto into this kind of fantasy playground. So, and a lot of the details of the world were real, and it's important to have that kind of naturalistic jumping off point. So that was my main sort of thing, is that there's a lot of other things I had to concentrate on in the film, but I felt like if we had the it's like when actors, some method actors have to get the right underwear for their character. It's like if you get the details of the place that you're in right, then you kind of have the chance to explode into another world. So it was, and we worked very hard on getting the right locations. The location manager did an amazing job in terms of we would come along, and because Bryan had drawn these houses, we would be in on Alberta Avenue and said, no, it has to be that number and that number only. There is no B option. And, we got everything. With the exception of there was one chain that wouldn't let us film, but everything else is Pizza, Second Cup, we just got all of the, Lee's Palace, getting all the details right. Sonic Boom, we just made sure that we were in the right places and worked really hard to get that working, and everybody was very cooperative. But I think if there was ever another city had offered a bigger tax break, and we'd have had to go to Louisiana or Prague, or it would have been a disaster.
Well, you don't live in Toronto anymore, right?
No, I haven't lived here since 2005. Yeah, I moved to Halifax and then to the States.
Right. And was it important for you that they maintain the Toronto location, or was that, in order to get the movie made, if they had been able to make it somewhere else, did it matter to you that much?
No, not at all. I did not give a crap. But no, it's amazing that they did. I would have probably being a starving cartoonist, I probably would have just taken anything. If it was some other jerk directing the movie, I probably would have happily gone along with it. But fortunately, it was Edgar, and there was never any question of shooting anywhere else. And last night, obviously I don't live here. I was walking around. It's wow, these streets are so Scott Pilgrim-y. It's now it's codified. It's part of our fictional world.
Well, you really get a sense of it when you see the film. The streets are, for me, I mean, I live here, so I know, but they are undeniably Toronto streets to me, in the houses and the architecture and stuff. And I really thought that it really grabbed a great spirit of the film. As a Torontonian, how did you feel when you saw the film?
Definitely. I think it really captures the charm that our city offers. It captures the uniqueness, the diversity, the great lifestyle, the awesome vibe, the coolness of Toronto. It's all there, and it's embracing it all as opposed to just using it as a backdrop. Toronto's a character as well in the film and in the series. So I think it's great. It's awesome for Toronto. And the thing is, it's not like they're saying, hey, look, we're in Toronto. It's just, hey, we're just hanging out at this cool place, and we're here in Toronto. This is how we live, and this is where we are. So it's more sort of, it comes from more of a genuine place.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, loads of movies, as you all know, have been shot here. But there'll be scenes where you see the CN Tower in the background, but they're paying with American money in the stores and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that was sort of the beauty of it. That to me, that it wasn't made that big a deal that it was Toronto, but it was unmistakably here. And I think that's the thing.
Well, like Kick-Ass came out a few months before our movie, and it was like they were shooting at, I think it was Spadina Station, like that really recognizable glass dome thing, and it was supposed to be in New York. It's just like it took me right out of the movie. Same with the Incredible Hulk a couple years ago, running down Yonge Street by Sam the Record Man and everything.
I live right there, and we were coming home one night, and there was a bus overturned with flames shooting out of it, and I thought, there's been a horrible accident, and we ran, and then, there was Ed Norton yelling at us to get off the set. The reaction online was amazing to this film, and people really loved this movie. What was the surprising thing to you now that the DVD is on the way out, the film's had its theatrical run? What was the surprising part of the reaction from fans for you, or was there one?
I think the very gratifying thing has been the responses from fans and from people within the industry. Like, I mean, meeting fans who have seen it multiple times and what they get from it is really, very flattering. And there's one guy that came to one of the New Beverly screens in Los Angeles who's seen it 31 times. And I can only think that sort of some of the themes of I think that's the thing, is I think sort of like it's, for some people it's like some of the relationships really resonate with them. They identify with one of the characters, so I think there's a lot of people within the film that you would watch it and say, I was a bit like that. I identify with Scott Pilgrim. I feel like I've been that kind of kid sometimes, or certainly been like the sort of, the kind of overgrown child. But, and then, I've had great responses from within the industry, like, and what's kind of nice is actually the people that do respond to it is like, you do get a thing where some people, for some people, and this goes for kind of like people on the internet and kind of people in the industry, where like they kind of confuse kind of box office with quality, and and so in a way, like what's nice to me is that sort of like the people who really respond to it, just saying, I love that movie, it's my favorite movie of the year. Like, or, that movie was so well made, I can't believe you guys pulled that off. So getting those kind of, like, compliments from either people within the industry or fans is just, like, makes it all worthwhile, really. And we kind of had that very early on, so it was like, whilst the sort of the box office was bittersweet, like, we're still getting kind of, like, endless, like, platitudes from people. So it was a strange thing to kind of get, like, sort of, like, raves throughout. And critically as well, like sort of some of the reviews I was incredibly happy with. So I can't really, I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud of the response,
Well, it's funny. People often will say to me after I've given something a bad review, if I give something a bad review and it goes to number one, they'll say, well, you were wrong about that. And it's like, I don't review the box office. And I think that's something that maybe there's a divide there that people don't seem to quite understand.
Yeah, I think sort of it's I think the thing with this film as well is because it is like something kind of fresh and different, it doesn't quite sit so easily in a box, and that makes it harder to market. And one of the reasons that we're doing stuff for the Blu-ray is A, because we're all proud of it, the studio proud of it. If they weren't, we wouldn't be doing any promotion at all. It would just be released on Tuesday with no extras. And that very much isn't the case. But also part of it is still getting the word out. And I think the only dispiriting thing about the business at the moment is that you're kind of expected to be a smash in not even 72 hours, 12 hours. And if you're not, some people, not everybody, dismiss it. And it's that thing where these films are there forever, and there's plenty of, films that, not just, cult films, really famous films. I mean, there's obviously, legions of, cult films that, didn't do well on initial release, whether it's Big Lebowski or, Office Space, but then massive films, like Wizard of Oz, just that.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. So I think the thing is that a dog is for life, not just for Christmas.
Well, you had obviously had a vision for this from start to finish. When you first saw the movie, you were there while it was being shot. Tell me what you thought when you first saw the film.
The very first time I saw the film in its entirety with everything in place where it was supposed to be was at Comic-Con. And I feel like I couldn't have asked for a better place to watch it because we got to share that experience with the fans. And so you could really, as a cast, we all kind of sat there together and we were just, I don't know, we were getting teary-eyed even and just touched. We were just overwhelmed by the response from the fans because everyone just loved it. And the thing is, we all put our heart and soul into it too and loved filming it and putting that story out there for people and wanted to share that with everyone. And the way that everyone responded to it was just more than we, could have hoped for. So it was amazing. What
sort of fan response do you get since the film's come out and people have seen it? How do people treat you now, fans of the film?
I feel
do you get weird letters from people?
No, I don't. Nobody recognizes me. I kind of just go about doing my thing. But when I do go to events promoting the DVD or when we were doing press in London or in LA, it's definitely you just get this appreciation and people just are really glad that they feel like we did justice, and I feel like we did too. So
I think you'll probably get more of a taste of it on tomorrow at the signing. This will be your first signing after the movie's actually out.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but it's always sort of been behind closed doors, and I've just been hanging out, enjoying.
What was your reaction? I mean, you were there from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And so, what was your reaction to the film? Were you on set? Did you come?
I was on and off. Yeah, I was working on the book at the same time. But yeah, I saw it with an audience for the first time at the same screening at Comic-Con. And yeah, it was just the 1,200 most hardcore fans that we could ever ask for. It was like a World Cup game, is what we kept saying. It was in the summer. Yeah, it was incredible. It was like a rock concert, and then literally was a rock concert at the end because they had Metric play. But I mean, the film, during the film, they were screaming just as loud as they were for the rock star. So it was unreal.
Well, it must be quite something to see it come to life in that way for you. I mean, when you were doing it, and was there any thought that one day you'd like to sell it to the movies? Was there any anticipation of that at all, or were you just creating a book to pay the rent?
Yeah, no, I not even to pay the rent. I was really just doing it because I wanted to do it. I mean, I had to quit my job to do it because it was the only way to focus. And then at the beginning, comic store, yeah,
on Markham Street, just down from a restaurant I worked in for years.
Yeah,
Southern accent.
Oh yeah.
Real.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right after
we did.
right after I finished the book, I had to get a job in a restaurant too, and I was broke. And a few months after that is when Edgar first called. It's not like I got paid that day or anything, but it's been kind of a slow burn with this thing. We've been working on the movie, and I've been working on the books, and then the casting started and meeting all the actors, and seeing, like, Edgar has this great gift for casting, so he would always have the right people. Like, he showed me all the audition tapes and stuff, but we always homed in on the same people.
Was it important to you to cast Canadians in very significant roles like Ellen and Michael Cera?
We certainly tried to. I mean, we as is everything, we cast all over North America, and, it's just the way kind of it breaks and stuff. It just so happened that our perfect Knives Chow was in Toronto, but, so there's an element of coincidence to that, and we certainly tried to, like the supporting cast is kind of like full of great young, sort of Canadian actors. So that was important to us. And actually the books itself is like it's a lot about kind of the culture clash between America and Canada. So for the most part, like, the Americans in the film are played by Americans. So.
Well, you also got the Canadian musicians, like.
That was. I mean, obviously, like, it was important to kind of steep it in Canadian culture and having a lot of the bands involved, and even like working on not just the people performing, but even working on the film. Like Chris Murphy worked on it as a musical coach, which was amazing.
Will you shoot in Toronto again, do you think? I mean,
I like shooting here if there was the right thing, I'm not sure that I could promise another film set in Toronto. It doesn't work like that, but I wouldn't rule out working here again. I really liked it, and I liked a lot of the crew that I worked with.
For the reaction to the film, I sort of touched on it with you. You're used to this kind of reaction to your movies, I think. I mean, I remember hosting the Hot Fuzz event here in Toronto with you and Simon and Nick, and afterwards you said something like, or I was told, make sure that you tell everyone to line up to the left. It was very sort of specific protocol because there was going to be a lot of stuff to get signed, and this was before it all happened and before the Q&A, and I thought, yeah, whatever, there'll be, a few pieces to sign. So I said, everyone that wants something signed, please stand to the left and make an orderly line. And there were 700 people there, 699 of them stood up with something to have signed and come over, and they gave you things, and they were very enthusiastic. So you're used to this reaction, and because I think this, Scott Pilgrim, is the kind of movie that sort of engenders that kind of very strong reaction from fans. You're used to it. Bryan, do you get this as well? I mean, as the author of the graphic novels, and what's it been like for you?
It actually started ratcheting up really early on. By the time I had the second book out, like I came here for TCAF, the Toronto Comic Festival, and I think I had like 200 people, and that was when I was selling 200 books. It was just like, where did they all come from? So since then, it's just been, every time it's been crazy. And like just this past summer, we had the release for the 6th book at the Big Island.
And it was crazy, right?
It was crazy. Yeah, Ellen was there too.
Yeah,
it was
fun.
like, yeah, it was easily 800 people in line for the actual signing, and something like 2,000 people in the street that night.
Yeah, I'd heard that they had to sort of shut down the upper part of Markham Street by Ed's there because there were just so many.
Yeah, it was shut down kind of by default.
Yeah.
There's no way through.